search and destroy mission against all of the president's perceived political opponents that the president concocted when he talked about Barack Obama tapping the phones at Trump Tower back in March of 2017. And he is chasing down every conspiracy theory that the president is putting forward. At the same time, and more disturbingly, Bill Barr is providing aid and comfort to the president's allies, to Roger Stone, one of the president's longest political allies. The two have been politically inseparable through the decades. And so for the Attorney General to intervene in sentencing when we're talking about one of the president's closest political allies, it's just beyond the pale. It is an impeachable offense, but of course, lying to Congress is also an impeachable offense. And Bill Barr did that a very long time ago. But, Mike, the federal judges that are getting together who called the emergency meeting, the Washington Post reported that they went through their files. They've never seen this happening before. And they're going to talk about a president who has launched a war on the Article III branch, the judicial branch. He did it a long time ago with Judge Curiel, when Judge Curiel actually ruled against him in a hearing involving his scam institution, Trump University. He did it, remember, back in February of 2017, when a Bush appointed judge actually put a stay on his Muslim ban. And now, of course, he's not only attacking the judge in the Roger Stone case, again, a guy who's been his political advisor for decades, but is also attacking U.S. attorneys, independent U.S. attorneys, and is also attacking jurors. I don't see that the judges had any choice but to call this meeting. And I really don't think Chief Justice John Roberts has much of a choice but to speak out if this attack on Article III powers continues.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, you're absolutely right on everything you just said, especially about John Roberts, who you just mentioned. And we must remember, he sat there during the impeachment proceedings in the United States Senate, and he heard a couple of the president's lawyers working for the president of the United States actually lie. He heard that. And Danny, on this case with the judges, the federal judges meeting, it should be pointed out that, first of all, that the author of the Atlantic piece, Don Ayer, was the former Deputy Attorney General of the United States under George H.W. Bush. He's not some partisan. But the idea of the President of the United States reaching down into the Justice Department to inflict his opinion on active cases, unheard of?
It's not necessarily unheard of. And you could make the argument that if the president has the pardon power, the power to commute a sentence to nothing, then theoretically he has the power, but not the right to reach down to the DOJ and ask them to give leniency to a defendant facing sentencing. So it's probably not correct for the president to do that, even if he may have the constitutional power. It may be that more culpability lies with Attorney General Barr, who, as you saw in that letter by over 1,000 former federal prosecutors, they got it exactly right when they said the AG sets policy. That's what political appointees do. Line prosecutors go out and they execute that policy. So it's very improper for the AG to reach down to line prosecutors who have spent so much time and effort in prosecuting a case and preparing a sentencing memorandum, using sentencing guidelines calculated by the probation department, and to go in there and say, hey, this technically correct application of the sentencing guidelines, we just think it's not fair. And so we want leniency. That's what makes this so improper. It is a breach of protocol that evinces a political leaning. And in the judiciary and among lawyers, it is not actual impropriety. It's the appearance of impropriety that we are concerned with.
Well, and, you know, Gene Robinson, I mean, this isn't a close call. I mean, the president is especially compromised because he is intervening not just on some death row case, not just on some generic case of somebody that may have been illegally or improperly prosecuted and imprisoned. We're talking about a guy who has been Trump's political hack for decades. We're talking about a guy who was at the center of the WikiLeaks scandal, who was communicating with Russian agents, who knew when all of that information was going to be leaked. We're talking about a guy who showed contempt for the court and for the judge throughout the process, who threatened the life of a witness. This isn't a close call. Donald Trump is getting involved in his own conspiracy with his own political hack. This is so beyond the pale that this is an open and shut case. If Bill Barr can't come out and explain that to the American people, he is not worthy to be Attorney General of the United States, which, of course, we know by his own words and actions already that he's not.
Yeah, I think we have some actual impropriety here, and I think that's very clear. I mean, there are two big problems with Bill Barr from the standpoint of this non-lawyer. Number one is that he absolutely is acting as the president's sort of personal lawyer and political avenger in his official duties, and it's outrageous. The only, he didn't ask that sentencing guidelines for the crimes that Roger Stone was convicted by a jury of committing be looked at again nationwide, that they're too tough. He didn't ask that, threatening a witness and all that. Well, maybe the guidelines are just too tough for what he did. No, this is one case that he's involved in involving President Trump's crony and his other crony, Michael Flynn, and by the way, he sets up a process for his other crony, Rudy Giuliani, to pass conspiracy theories into the Justice Department for investigation, the sort of stream of poison that Rudy is pouring in. That's all one big problem. The other big problem with Barr is this cockamamie view of the presidency that he has, which is incredibly destructive to the idea we all have of the president's role in our system. And he really does believe that a president has kingly powers. And that's not the idea. That's not what a president should have, according to the Constitution. And so those two things, I think, make him unqualified and unsuited to be Attorney General.
All right. Thank you, Danny Savelos, for staying on this morning. Appreciate it. And still ahead on Morning Joe, John Bolton is looking to sell books through public appearances. And, of course, he could have appeared before Congress, would have helped. But anyhow, we'll run through the big news he made last night. That's next on Morning Joe.